All right, so again, my name is Jeff Sear. I'm the technology teacher and integrator at Leeds Central School and Turner Primary School. This evening's session is about how to Google Classroom with your children at home. For grades 3 to 6 in MS-80 52, and above that actually, 3 to 12, students are using Google Classroom as our learning platform for distance learning. So I thought it'd be good to put together one of these sessions so that if anybody has any questions about how to use Google Classroom at home to support their kids, this is the session to learn about that. So we'll go ahead and get started. So today's session, we're going to talk about how to get to Google Classroom. And we're sort of talking from the basis of where your students are going on their devices, on their Chromebooks. So how to get to Google Classroom. We're going to talk about accessing classes, accessing assignments within those classes, and then actually completing assignments within there. And then, so as far as how to get to Google Classroom, there are three easy ways. I'm sure there's probably more than three ways, but there's really three ways, easy ways for your child to be able to get to Google Classroom. So first of all, we have the student links page, which for many students at Leeds Central School, the student links page is actually their home page. So when they log into their Chromebooks, it will actually bring them onto that page. And we'll go there really quickly. So if they see this, I do have Google Classroom as a link right here for easy accessibility. So that's one way to do it. The second way that you can access Google Classroom is through what we call the waffle. But if you look, I'll go ahead and pull up Google Drive here for a second. And so in just about any Google service that you can go on, in the top right corner, this is kind of where your user account is. But right next to it is these 9 little dots, which we call the waffle. And then when you click on that, you'll see that there's a variety of different Google services that you have access to. And you can switch from one to the other just by clicking on one of these. I can go to Gmail, I can go to Calendar, and then very obviously I can go to Classroom. Now for some of your children, Classroom may not show up immediately on this list. Sometimes it gets a little buried down the page. But the way that we can move it around, we can actually move these around. So if you just click and hold, and you'll see that's what I'm doing right now, you can see that I'm just clicking and dragging to move this around the screen, and I can reorder all these apps as necessary. So this might be a way to sort of organize this in a way where the stuff your child needs to access can be the easiest to find. So, but you can go to Google Classroom from there. And then the last way that I'll show you is the actual URL. So if you open a new tab in your internet browser of choice, you can go to classroom.google.com. And we'll go ahead and do that right now, classroom.google.com. And any of those three ways will get you to Google Classroom. Now, your child's Google Classroom may look different from mine. First, because they are a student and I'm a teacher, so there are some features that are accessible to teachers that aren't to students. And we might go over some of those. But generally speaking, when your child gets into Google Classroom, they're going to see a bunch of squares, and these are the classes that they've been added to. So most likely their classroom teacher has a Google Classroom that they've been added to. Some of their specialists might have a class that they've been added to, including myself with computer science, which I have noticed that some students aren't in already because I need to update these. So hopefully soon that will all be settled and everyone will be in the right place. But again, the principle kind of stands that you go to Google Classroom and this is what you'll see. You'll see all the classes that your child is a student in. So again, this is called the classes page. And then all you really need to do is click any one of those boxes and you will enter that class. So if I want to go into one of my computer science classes, I would just click, or we'll go test class because that's where I've put some stuff in for this session. So I click and here I am. Another way that you can navigate through your classes in Google Classroom too is if you look in the top left corner, there are these 3 lines. And if you just click on them, that will bring up the menu. And these 3 lines exist anywhere, pretty much anywhere you are in Google Classroom. And then you can see that all of the classrooms that you'll have access to are here, and you can just click to go from one to another. Now, obviously, your children are not going to see this section on teaching because they're not teachers, but they will see this enrolled and then all the classes they're enrolled in below. As a teacher, I can be enrolled in students. So I've had myself added as a student into some classes. So when I'm doing my trainings of students, I can kind of show them what that looks like on their end. And then I can just click out, and here we are. So this is the generic, or this is the landing spot for when you go into a class. And for your children's sake, there's really only 2 sections that they need to know about. One is stream and one is classwork. They don't really need to know about people. It just shows all the other students that are added in the class. And then as a student, they're not going to see this grades. They're only going to see these 3, stream, classwork, and people. So stream, this is where we are right here. And I like to think of stream as basically the Facebook news feed of Google Classroom. So anything that gets posted for announcements or for assignments, any sort of materials that get added to the class, it all shows up here on the stream in chronological order. So if we go and make an assignment, it'll show up at the top, and it just kind of pushes down. So if we're looking for something more specific, we probably will want to use the Classwork tab, but anything recent that the kids need to know about will probably end up in this stream. And then also, depending on how your child's teacher has their Google Classroom set up, they may be able to post a comment in the class as well, or reply to comments that their teacher has posted. So that's the stream tab. And then we also have, I should mention here real quickly too, there's this box on the left for incoming, or not incoming, upcoming. And anything that your child's teacher has scheduled for an assignment that's coming up due will show up in this box right here. And we'll talk about finding assignments and due dates and making that a little easier here in just a few minutes. But there's the upcoming box too, so you can look and see this is what's due tomorrow. We'll go to Classwork, and you'll see when we get here, this is a place where your teachers will post assignments or quizzes or questions to answer, or also links. So any sort of links to websites that they might need to use, your teachers might put links here for those. You can see I've put a couple of examples. Your child's teacher may organize these by what are called topics. So links is a topic and quizzes is a topic. If not, then it all just kind of shows up in one place, and I think that also goes in chronological order from newest to oldest. So that is another thing that you can use. We're going to talk about the assignments and things in a little bit, so I'm going to leave those right now. But if we look at the links, all you really need to do is just click on one, and there's the actual website right there. There may be other materials that teachers can post, maybe a PDF file or a Google Doc with class expectations, or even multiple links. You can put multiple links in too. So maybe your child's teacher will have a particular links for a particular assignment, and they'll all show up in one place. But all you need to do really is with the link right here, just click on it, and away you go into the link. So in this case, it's Scratch. And I just click on it, and here I am. Pretty simple. The next part of let me hide these so I can see my tabs. So the next part of our discussion tonight is about accessing assignments. So we'll go into a little bit more detail about some of the things that we saw. Yeah, so we'll get started on assignments. So any sort of assignment, which I can kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown from the teacher side. I'll go ahead and press create here. And you'll see there's a couple of different icon sets. There's one for assignment and one for quiz assignment, one for questions. You'll see those. So if you see icons like this, those are icons that show that students have work that they need to respond to and turn in. So we do have an assignment here. We don't have a question, but we do have an assignment that says write to introduce yourself. And I can just click on this, and I can go view assignment, and we're going to talk a little bit about what is in here. So when you come into an assignment, you'll see that your teacher will include a description of the assignment right here, and you'll see that this teacher has done that. So your child would read those directions. If there are any other, I don't know if you can put videos or things like that, but you will at least be able to see the directions that you can read here. And then anything that your child needs to put in for the assignment will end up in this box here called your work. And the way that your work functions is that your teacher is actually able to create templates that your students can work on if there's something for them to if there's something they want them to work off of as a partially complete document or just a template. So if your child's teacher has done that, then you'll actually see that in here because they will put a template in, and Google Classroom just makes a copy of it for each individual student. So in that case, you would see your child's name and then the name of the Google Doc or slide or something along those lines. And you would just have to click on this to open it up and edit and be on your way for getting all that stuff done. Now, in some cases, your child's teacher may not have a template file included for them to work on. So in that case, they need to make their own document. And in that case, we would just press add or create. And when we do that, you can see we've got a couple of different ways that we can create documents. So we have Google Drive link and file. So if we have something, if your students have something that's already in their Google Drive, they can link to it here. I don't know that they're really going to use this because I don't know how much they actually go to Google Drive to do their work. I think most of it ends up being something they access through Google Classroom that brings them there, but this is an option. If they need to put a link, so for instance, for my remote computer science classes, I may have students submit links to Scratch projects if they're working on Scratch projects. So they would actually use the link and then paste the link to their Scratch project with this. And you can see it just brings up a box and you can paste the website or whatever. Or if you have a file, so this would be like if something ended up being like a PDF file, or another example might be if your students are working on 3D printing something in one of my classes, and they needed to send me the print file so I can actually print out their project, they would do it with this file option. So that's what those are. More than likely, they're going to be using one of these, and specifically either a doc or a slideshow. So we're actually going to go ahead and just make a new doc right now, and we'll see what happens here. So it says creating, and sometimes it doesn't always open it on its own. You'll see that's what happened is it will just open the Google Doc for you automatically. Sometimes it doesn't, and then you just have to click on it to open it. But either way, you can get there from here. And now you'll see we have this blank Google Doc, and there's our response, or whatever your students need to write. That would go in the Google Doc. From there, if your students need to, or if your children need to submit the assignment, there's also a couple of ways to do that. So first of all, in Google Docs, when it's a doc that's linked from Google Classroom, you have this extra button that you don't normally have, which is Turn In. And you can just press that. It's going to open a new tab back into Google Classroom. And then you'll see this question about, are you sure you want to turn in your work? And you'll see right now we have 2 attachments. And then when I'm ready to turn in, I can just press Turn In. I'm going to cancel because I'm not quite ready. But that's one way to turn in the work. Or if we go back to our last Google Classroom tab where these two documents are, we also have a turn in button right here that we can press, and we get that same message. Are you sure you want to turn in your work? What happens when you do that is it actually will change the ownership permissions of the Google Doc. So once your child turns in something, Google revokes their editing privileges of the document and gives that to the teacher. So at that point, now it's up to the teacher to open it, and then they can review it, leave comments, grade it, that kind of stuff. So at this point, the students can't really do anything to edit the document after they've submitted it. Now they do have the option, just in case you thought of something last second that you forgot to put in, there is an unsubmit button that we can press. And then when we do that, it brings us back to this screen that we were in before, and then we have these editing privileges on those documents again. So like I said, for templates, sometimes your child's teacher may link something that for them to fill out. So this is actually an example of something here. So I know a lot of teachers will use Google Slides because they can kind of make like a worksheet equivalent type thing, or just something that allows students to kind of fill things out. So this was an example one that I made here. So they might, their teacher might make a couple of questions that they want them to answer, and then they just would need to type. So here is an example of text boxes. So your child's teacher may include a text box that they want them to fill out, and I probably should have made those a little bit more obvious that those were answer boxes. So let me do that right now. And so if they leave an answer box, your child would just need to click in and delete the text that's there and then answer the question. So pretty self-explanatory right there. Now in some cases, they might not put a text box. So if you need to add a text box into your Google slide, the way that we would do that is up in this toolbar right here, and let me zoom in so it's a little bit easier to see. Right up here, there is the text box option. Now, this part of the toolbar is basically where you insert all the things. So if there's something you're trying to add to the Google slide, chances are this is where you're going to create that thing you're going to add. So like I said, in this case, we're going to go with text box. And let's go ahead and zoom back out here. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and just click and drag. You see my cursor there that kind of looks like a plus. We just click and drag, and now we have a text box when I let go. And now I can go ahead and type my response in here. And I can change the font. There's the font right there. Zoom into that too real quick. So I can change the font if I want. Let's go ahead and make it Acme. We can change the font size. So I think I had it on 28, if I remember right. We can bold, we can italicize, we can underline, we can do all three. We can change the color. We can add a background to it. So it's kind of Halloween colors. So there's a lot of different things that we can do as far as editing in here. But the main thing that your child needs to know how to do and what you might need to know as far as supporting them is just this text box tool, and then some of the basic stuff with fonts. You may also have sort of shapes. So let's say if your child's teacher wants to have them circle an answer or circle the correct answer. In that case, you could create a shape right here. And you can see there's lots of different shapes you could create. Here's a circle right there. And then there's my little plus, my crosshair again. And then I can go ahead and click and drag to make a circle. Now, when you go to do that, Google likes to fill in that circle with color. You can see that it's gray and it's actually covering the number that's behind it when I just want to kind of circle around it. So I can actually take away this color and make it transparent. So you'll just see the outer ring of the circle with the number inside of it. And the way that we do that is up here where fill color is, I can just press. And then you'll see here are all the colors I can make it. I can make it orange if I wanted to. But I'm going to press this one that says transparent. And you'll see at that point now, I just have the outer ring of the circle and the numbers on the inside. So pretty simple there as well. So that's what I think a lot of at least the early work that your child might be using in Google Slides is going to be. And we'll continue to show them how to do more and more things as the year goes on when they're at school too. So I am going into classes and doing lessons and those kind of things. So, obviously, if your child has work to do in their regular classroom and then they have this stuff in the specials to do too, going back and forth between all the different classes to find those is probably going to be a little bit of a hassle. So one of the things that Google Classroom has added that I think really helps make this a little bit easier, we talked about, for instance, in test class, when you go in here, instead of going through the classwork and then trying to figure out what's due when, you have an upcoming thing right here. So that helps simplify it. But they've also added the ability to be able to kind of see everything from all the classes in one place. So you get a little bit of an at-a-glance look. And those two things are the to-do and the calendar. The to review is a teacher function, so the kids won't actually see this. They'll see to-do and they'll see calendar. And they basically do the same thing, but they sort of present all of the things that the kids need to know about that needs to get done in different ways. So if I go to to-do, I'm going to press that right now, and you'll see that in all of the classes that I've been added to, here is a listing of the work that has been assigned to me that isn't done yet. And you'll see that some of the stuff does not have any specific due date. That stuff shows up first. And then if I go down here to later, you'll see that there's actually something here that's due on October 31st. So just a writing assignment to do. If there's something that's due this week, it would show up under this week. Same thing with next week, but there really isn't anything. So it organizes by no due date, and then this week, next week, and later. So it kind of shows the at a glance for all of your classes in a list form. So that's kind of one way to do it. If there's work you're missing, which is stuff that would be past due, you would find it under missing, and then you'd see a listing of those things in here, and then completed assignments would show up under done. So the stuff that's right in front of your students that is coming up sort of shows up here, so that gives them some guidance on what they need to be focusing on and working on. And then as you go on, you'll find different due dates and stuff like that. So that's one way that your child can hopefully stay organized and have as much control over things as possible. So that's to do. And then the other one is the calendar. And so calendar, it kind of does the same thing, just in a calendar format, a day-by-day format. So if you need to look specifically by, what day, if that's, if that kind of works better for you as far as how to organize your information and you need more of a visual look, then use the calendar. I don't know that it really makes a difference whether you use one or the other. They're just different ways of presenting the same thing. And you can see that I'm actually I have a couple of activities that I've missed here that are past due, but you'll see those. And then I have a couple of things upcoming. I think these end up being different colors by classes, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think that's how it works. And then you can see I can go forward and I can take a look. Is there something due next week? It doesn't look like it. And then as I get to here, we talked about this. Here's my homework that's due at the end of October. And we can go on and on and on. I'm sure your teachers probably aren't going to schedule anything that far ahead, at least in most cases. So So that's to do and the calendar. So again, it's kind of two ways of doing the same thing. To do kind of gives you a list format of the work that needs to get done, and calendar makes it a little bit more visually organized by date and not necessarily by class or anything like that. So that's probably when your child logs into Google Classroom, that actually might sort of be a really good place for them to start, is to go into to do or go into calendar and just kind of see, what's going on for today. This is what needs to get done on my distance learning days, that kind of stuff. So I think that's a feature that definitely makes life a little bit easier for everybody as far as keeping all this stuff organized.